Alright, so we're starting the next unit talking about transformation, so how kind of things move on a graph. So we're going to go over some kind of general definition stuff for transformations, and then we'll get into translations. Right, so transformation is something that results in a change in the size, shape, or location of a figure. Alright, so I'm just kind of moving it around on the graph. One thing to think about anytime they talk about when you see pre-image, right, it's the original figure. Image is the after effect. Right, so a rigid motion is something that preserves distance and angle measure. Right, so size and shape. So look at this first one and say, do I have a rigid motion? Right, so my pre-image went here to my image. So look at this, right? Have the same shape, both squares, but the pre-image is a lot smaller. So this one, I would say no. Different sizes, right? If I look down here, look at my pre-image, right, and my image. There I have the exact same size and shape, so this one is yes. Kind of same things happening here, right? I have two triangles. They appear to be the same size. Just this one's been flipped over here, so I can say this one is yes as well. One of the other important things to kind of note is that when I have these things, I'm going to name them. And how I name them is important because things have to kind of match up, right? So one thing to keep in mind is that when I look at this image name here, right, that I would say it as E prime, right? So that's all what that little apostrophe means is prime. So corresponding angles, right, they're really easy here. If I said angle E, right, I would say it corresponds to angle E prime. Same thing with like the sides, right? If I said EF, it's going to correspond to that EF prime side. So just know that in between the two images, the pre-image and the image, those sides are going to always correspond. So to look at translations, right? Translation is just this kind of definition here. It takes everything and moves it all points in the same direction that they were before, right? So when I want to find the pre-image or the image, right, I have this kind of rule that they give me. So the translation, -2, -5, right? So this T here, right, capital T, means translation. So first I want to find the coordinates of the original image, use the translation rule, and then graph and find the points of the other one. So I'm going to look at and say, well, what are the coordinates of P, right? So I look in -3, 4. And then what that -2, -5 means is that I take 2 away from my x, right? So what is -3 minus 2? So I have -5, and -5, or 4 minus 5, right, would give me -1. And so I get my new kind of image point at -4 or -5. So that's how you have the coordinates, right? You could also just count, right? So if I look at P, I kind of go back 1, 2, and down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could get Q prime. Same thing here, right? 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, and have R prime. So that would be how I find my translations, right? Other thing I could do is I could look at and say, well, how do I write the rule? That would take me from PQRS to PQRS prime. So I look at, and I'm going to say, I have my translation, right? Now look at how does my x's change, right? So how far over did I go from here to here? So I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So 8 in the positive direction, right? And then how far down did I go? 1, 2. So down 2 gives me a negative. So that translation goes like that, right? A lot of times, sometimes they'll write it and they'll add in the shapes, right? The shape names. And they'll say that you take PQRS, translate it that way, you get to the prime shapes. Right. Last thing that happens sometimes is we have a composition, right? So composition of transformations is a combination of two or more, right? And so when we talk about translations like we're talking about today, any composition of two translations is just another translation, right? So we have this kind of point here, right, where this chess piece starts here, right? We're going to use that as kind of our 0, 0. It then moves to the blue point for translation 1, into the green point for translation 2. Right, so if I want to look at what is kind of my first translation, I look and I say, okay, so how far did I move left to right? So I went 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, and then I went down 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my first translation rule. Then I look at my second one and say, okay, how far did I move left to right? I went 1, 2, right, and I went up 2, so I'm going to have a positive 2. Right, so there's my two translations. If I want to kind of see how this can combine into one, I look and say, well, how did it change from red to green, right? So look at the red, right? I know I went over 4, 5, 6, right? And I can see that by adding those two together. And then I went down 2, so I'm at negative 2, which I can see by adding those two together. Right, so you could write it as both, or you could write it as a composition, and it's just going to be one single translation.